measure our rain by feet as opposed to inches. We rust. We don't tan. We teach our children the anti-rain dance. And it's well known that the Rain Festival begins January 1st and ends December 31st. And it's all well known that people who use umbrellas are either wimps or tourists. But the thing that strikes me is that whenever the native coastal Salish people hear people complaining about the rain, well, we just pause till the truck leaves. But whenever we hear people complaining about the rain, we just smile because we know the way the land that you see today was not the way it was long ago until the promise of the whale. Now you know each year the whales travel far up north to visit the great white spirit. Now if you can imagine, this long trek begins just after the mamas give birth to their calves or baby whales. So these young newborn whales begin this long voyage far up north every year. And as the years pass by, the parents teach the currents, the tides, the landmarks, and the rivers. But when it comes time for the young whales to become an adult whale, there is a passage, a once-in-a-lifetime passage when that young whale will become an adult whale. And in this passage, the young whales must travel far up north to the great white spirit, solo, all by themselves. This life-threatening voyage brings near death without the knowledge of the team or family. And it was no different for this one whale named Kika. Now Kika had been looking forward to this long trek, and he had started during the middle of the night. But as the sun started to rise, and as the warm rays touched the sides of Kika, a heaviness came over his eyes, and he decided that it'd be best to swim into this small inlet and take a short nap. And as he entered the small inlet, the warm waters, he fell asleep quite quickly. Now it's hard to say how long he'd been asleep, but when he awoke, the sun was still fresh in the air. Kika stretched his large body, and he started to work his way back out to sea. But as he got into the small entrance of the inlet, lo and behold, the tide had lowered, leaving a large sandbar between him and the sea. Kika started swimming within the inlet, hoping to maybe find another way out, but there was none. His tummy started to bubble and gurgle of hunger, and he started to partake of the small fish that were in the same predicament as he. But as the days turned to weeks, those small fish had no means for such a large whale. Ribs started to show through his side. A weakness overcame him, and he closed his eyes for the last time. As he closed his eyes, he thought how disappointed his parents would be. Sister wouldn't care. But as his eyes closed, all of a sudden, there were voices. Is it voices of death calling his name so soon? With every ounce of energy, Kika opened one eye, and there in the distance were 3 small canoes. In each of the canoe was one man. And when the men saw the eye of the whale open, they quickly dug their paddles deep, leaving a safe distance between them and the whale. But in a weak, weak voice, Kika announced, "I am too hungry and too weak to do any harm unto you." With that, the men paddled closer, and as they paddled closer, they gazed on to this near-death whale. They knew how he felt, because you see, each summer the days would get longer, the heat would start to rise, and the slightest lightning would torch fires that devoured our longhouses, our canoes, our belongings, and even our game, and even our people. And it happened every summer. So when those men gazed onto that whale, they knew how he felt. With that, the men just disappeared. Well, within a matter of an hour, the men returned. One canoe was full of halibut, another canoe was full of cod, and the last canoe was full of salmon. Each of the men took turns, and they fed the whale. And as the last fish went down, Kika thanked his new friends, for they could have taken and eaten him for many weeks. But one of the men announced, "We have much fish now, so each day we will come and we will feed you." And so it was, each day, the halibut, cod, and salmon. But on this one particular day, when the men arrived, they brought their wives, their children, aunties, uncles, grandchildren. Everybody came and sang and danced and ate. And as Kika finished his last fish, to no surprise, the tide had rose high enough for the freedom of the sea. When Kika reached the surface of the ocean, he threw his body high and swam it against the surface, letting his parents know he was alive and well. He then stopped and he came back to the people. With an already grown voice, Kika made his first speech. "I am traveling far up north to visit the Great White Spirit. And because of your kindness of keeping me alive by feeding me your fish, I will ask of any wish you want. Puzzle on all the faces, young and old, until finally a little girl, shy of sorts, comes forward and spoke for all. "Hey, Mr. Whale, when you were stuck in the inlet, and you were stuck in the inlet for a long, long time, my daddy was the one that gave you salmon, and you ate a lot of salmon. Does it tickle when you eat salmon? Does it tickle when it goes down your big fat throat?" "Well, that doesn't matter, because when you were stuck in the inlet, why didn't you ask the Great White Spirit to get you out of the inlet?" Whoa, said the whale. "I am too far south for the Great White Spirit to hear my voice. So once again, I will ask of any wish you want. Well, it didn't take the children 3 times to be told. They quickly raised their arms and said, we wanna stay up as late as we want." And then the men raised their arms. "We want women who could cook the salmon so it's not so dry." And then the women the women had a meeting, a really long meeting. And it was after the meeting that the elder woman announced, "We want men who will share their feelings and their thoughts." And the men go, "We want women who don't talk so much." Well, there were wishes upon wishes upon wishes, until finally an old elder brought forth the power of the talking stick, and he announced, "Have we forgotten the long, hot summer days where the slightest lightning would torch fires that devour our canoes, our longhouses, and our belongings? Our wish should be a reprieve of these long, hot summer days." Silence. Silence fell fast, and it fell hard, until one elderly, "That's too big of a wish. We'd lose that wish. That's too big of a wish." But the old elder was demanding, and he had powers of his own, and so it was. The wish was a reprieve of the long, hot summer days. Well, Kika left. Days turned to weeks. Weeks turned to months. Once again, the days started getting longer. Heat started to rise, and the words of all words started filtering through the woods. Fire! Now the people only had enough time to gather what they could of their belongings in their arms and place it into the canoes, where they paddled oh so far from the shore. Many had seen it too many times and put their heads down. Others watched as the flames got closer and closer to the longhouses. And as the first longhouse began to burn, all of a sudden, there was one drop of rain, another drop of rain, and another drop of rain. The skies opened up and continued to rain until every single fire was put out. The men and the women danced for joy as they sang and drank of the waters that gathered in the crevices of the rocks. They sang and danced until the hardiest of hardies collapsed. It was then that the old elder came forward and he announced, "This is the promise of the whale." Oh, 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 oh. Don't get us started on that again. We lost that wish. It rains here ever so often. We lost that wish. We could have had women with big hearts, but we lost that wish. But the old elder said, "This is the promise of the whale." And the way that we can tell is if we raise our hands high up into the sky, and if it shall start to rain once again, we will know that this is the promise of the whale. And as the last little hands went up into the air, there was one drop of rain, another drop of rain, and another drop of rain. The skies opened up and continued to rain until the small creeks turned into streams, and the streams turned into rivers. Meadows turned into lakes as the moss ferns grew before your eyes, as spruce, cedar, Douglas, maples all reach for the sky. And so it was, the old elder announced, "From this day forward, whenever we carve of our totem poles, we will always, always carve a whale." And so it was, the chief then announced, "Since our tribe was the tribe that brought the rain, our song shall go like this." And so, whenever our people hear people complaining about the rain, we just smile because we know the land that you see today was not the way it was long ago. Nahashka. Thank you.